Most of it's probably mental. You don't like dark places that are wet and you're claustrophobic. You have a bunch of phobias and stuff. It's not going to be the place for you. Hi everyone, so this week we're going to a place called Frank, Alberta. So Alberta is home of the Frank Slide. You see there's a huge slide here that happened in 1903. There's a whole bunch of coal mines underneath where the slide is now. One nearby is called the Bellevue Mine, and that's where we're going today to visit. So normally we never go in coal mines, but this is a part of a guided tour. Really interesting about how coal and the whole history of this whole thing. So this slide actually killed 73 people. It was Canada's worst slide ever. And actually there's 17 miners that were underground, but they all survived. They got out of there, so none of the miners actually died. And it's quite the sight. So the Bellevue coal mine operated back in 1903. It started the same just after the slide started. There's a whole bunch of other coal mines in the area. So we've got a real good guy that showed us around the mine, real knowledgeable about coal mines. His name is Christian, and you can meet him. And we'll go underground and see a bunch of these artifacts. Pretty cool show. And we'll explain why we never go in coal mines. All right, so we're here with Christian, and he's actually one of the tour guides here at the Bellevue Mine. They're going to send us underground here, and we're going to have a look at this mine. So this is a big coal mine. It's just outside where the Frank Slide is.
It opened in 1903 and closed in 1961.
Impressive collection of artifacts and stuff here. So you're getting about 8,000 to 20,000 visitors a year going through here. Yep. This is a coal mine, so it's a little unusual, to have tours of coal mines because there's a lot of hazards in here. So you ever have problems with methane gas and black damp and stuff like that in a coal mine?
I have a whole lot of problems with methane gas inside our portion of the tour, at least.
A lot of people talk to me about exploring abandoned coal mines. I always tell them to stay out of coal mines. They're the most nastiest thing. And I said I'd never explore a coal mine. So this is the one exception that I have. And obviously it's safe because you guys inspect it and all that. It's not like an old mine that's been abandoned and you know what we're facing underground here.
Yeah.
And so this is a continuous, some of the safety apparatus and stuff. You guys have a little museum here where you're showing some of the stuff and some models of this mine here. Well, that's a pretty extensive, that's quite a pretty interesting map of all this. It's all room and pillars method here.
Yep, exactly.
So when they shut down the mine, did they blast a bunch of the pillars and stuff as they retreated?
Have a whole lot of money to spend on doing anything inside the mine itself. So most of the time we actually just closed the doors and walked away.
There's areas where have you explored areas that aren't open to the public that are kind of interesting to go in there?
Well, I mean, can't say I haven't been to some spots where the public's not allowed. The furthest on the map here, the furthest anyone's been into the mine in recent times after the miners is right where it really starts to branch off in this area right here.
Oh, I see.
But at that point we started fearing for our lives, so we decided to come back.
So how many miles, how far is it from where the tour ends to the very end of the mine?
Yeah, so of course from the entrance here all the way to the left hand side it's about 5.6 kilometers or about 3.5 miles.
Okay,
That's just going straight through though.
So how many miles of tunnels were in the mine, do you know?
Altogether there's about 240 kilometers or about 150 miles.
Wow.
Or about the same distance from right here right up to the city of Calgary.
But you couldn't go in on the main line into the back, most was probably caved or something?
No, there's no other entrances into the mine other than the entrance or the portal right where we go in with our tour here.
Okay.
All of the entrances that we're going into the mine, those are the only spots where we really did do collapse or start collecting.
So was there not air shafts and stuff ventilating the mine?
Well, there were, and if you go up into the hills you'll still see some ventilation shacks, but the tunnels going to those are either too small for people to get into or they collapse themselves.
Okay, yeah. So is there any places where the stopes have collapsed to the surface here, do you know? Is there sinkholes near the surface somewhere from where the mine's collapsed?
Totally. So of course the mine, well just the way it goes is going right underneath the town of Bellevue right up above us. 100 years ago, not a problem. Nowadays there's starting to become some problems like sinkholes starting to open up. In fact, there's one sinkhole starting to open up in the backyard of a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Not really kind of a problem there. But even just north of Bellevue, there's a big sinkhole up there that's starting to open up. Doesn't go right into the mine as far as I've heard, but it is part of the mine itself.
So how far underground is most of the mine?
Kind of depends on where you're going. So some parts of this mine are underneath some bigger hills than other parts. Altogether, the mine itself is, well, essentially at the end of our tour, it's about 150 feet underground at that point. The coal seam itself, or at least the second coal seam that we see on the tour, is about 20 feet wide.
Okay. Well, it'll be interesting to see it. We're looking forward to getting underground and having a look at this mine.
It should be a good time.
All right. Okay, so we're going to have a look at some of this equipment that they have here. So this is a continuous miner. He said they didn't use one, but he didn't know what he was talking about because this is what that is. Yeah, it's got replaceable bits on it, and as you can see, it just works on the face here, and then it just dumps the coal right into a big feeder, and it goes into the mine cars and behind it. So I don't know how many tons a day, but it was a pretty efficient way of mining coal, and they use these things all over the place. I'm not sure what brand this is, but I know Joy is a really common brand of continuous miner. And apparently they had one of these up at Barkerville Gold Mines and actually mine gold with this. If you have really soft ore, you're able to do this, not have to blast. So apparently they didn't do a lot of blasting in this mine when they were mining. Yeah, it is a Joy. Yeah, it is a Joy continuous miner. A gas or diesel powered mucker. Look at the size of the wheels on it. So that's pretty unusual. I've never seen one that was diesel powered. Not a very big mucker. Small little scoop shovel on it, and the operator sat right in it by the looks of it. The hoist, yeah, see that's for the levels, indicates the levels of the hoist. And here's some work cart wheels, collection of these, and we're going to show you these ore carts are kind of a little unique. It's nothing like we see in hard rock mining. So pretty fair sized Loki, again a diesel locomotive, and that's called a Hunset, flame-proof diesel locomotive, and it was built in 1949. What else is really interesting about these cars is they have no mechanism to tip them, so they had to go into a tipple, which they don't have here, but it's like a big, looks like a big ring. It goes in there and it flips the cars. They strap the cars, unhook these cars, weigh them, strap them in there, and then they actually rotate them upside down to dump them out. So kind of a pretty crude unloading system. Probably the oldest welder I've ever seen, and it was in the mine to weld, I don't know, I guess whatever needed to be welded in the mine. Machine they would have used for cutting coal faces. Looks like a big chainsaw. That's pretty old. Probably run off compressed air, I would think. Yeah, that looks like it was buried somewhere and rescued. So the Frank slide didn't cause any collapses in the mine?
No. At that point, we weren't anywhere near the Frank slide. Yeah. So our mine opened in 1903. The Frank slide also happened in 1903. Was it a coincidence? Yes, it was. The Frank slide happened a month before we actually started operations here. But then every year we also have engineers from Calgary come down and check, give a really full check throughout the mine as well. Of course, the process of our mining is called room and pillar mining. Now the room's in the title there, that just stands for the workspaces for all of the miners inside the mine. Every miner had a partner, and every pair of miners had their very own room within the mountain. Now for the pillars though, as you can see, in between all of these tunnels throughout the mine, we have these giant pillars of coal. Now, with room and pillar mining, when the miners are going into the mountain here, they're primarily going to be making all of these tunnels throughout the mine first, but they're going to be leaving these giant pillars of coal as they make them. And the reason we're leaving giant pillars of coal inside the mountain is because that's kind of what's holding up the mountain on top of us. Don't really want to take those out quite yet. So of course, as we make our way through, we get right to the very end of our mine, whether that's the end of the property or the end of the coal seam, whichever comes first. And at that point, we would turn around and start coming back out of the mountain. And as we leave, we're going to start taking everything out with us as well. This is called mining in the retreat. And of course, as you come back out, take out all of our good equipment, start relocating miners into different sections of the mine. But most importantly, since we're a coal mine, we're also going to start taking out these giant pillars of coal. Now, of course, as we take out the pillars, things start to get a little unstable, but that's okay. Because, as things start to fall behind us, everything left behind is essentially garbage. Because there's no more coal. No reason to go back into that area anymore. So everything left behind is, what we call the gob. This gray area right here.
So the coal is just on one level then? There's not different levels in the mine, right?
There are a few different levels into our mine. The gob is essentially taking everything out. So all of the levels are starting to become this one giant space. Yeah. So from the top of the gob to the very bottom of the gob is only about 1,000 feet. It's a rather shallow mine all in all. Yeah. In fact, there's stories back in the day where wives and kids could actually hear the miners working underneath their houses up in town.
So this mine actually had different seams then? Yeah. Not just one seam, there's different
Not one big seam.
At different levels.
But we do have 6 different coal seams altogether. And altogether our mine has about 9 different levels. And then we're going to be going on the 3rd level, or what's also known as our main haulage route.
So they use that hoist you have outside to bring the coal cars from one level to another?
Yep. Yeah, so we have a hoist outside. That was just to get coal cars from lower levels up to the main haulage route there. And of course, for higher levels, we just use a coal chute. And we'll show you one of those on the tour. Let's start heading up to the mine.
Alright, so we're going to head into this mine here. They're going to open the gate for us. And we'll see what the coal mine looks like.
So, this is of course the entrance of our mine, and we call all of this the portal.
So you know what Mark Twain used to say about mines? So the definition of a mine was a hole in the ground owned by a liar.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But let's step right inside.
Do they have electric railway in here at all, or just diesel?
Everything down here was run off of compressed air. But as time went on, of course,
Oh, that's pretty cool.
So eventually,
I wonder if that's a cement mix or what it was. This is a rock duster?
rock duster, yes. So it came in 1927. Now the rock duster, well, as you can kind of guess, it's full of rock dust, or also what we call calcium flour. Pack of it right here. So, as you can see, it kind of looks like flour. This is why we call it calcium flour as well. But essentially just finely crushed up limestone. And as the rock duster goes into the mine, after every shift, we're going to be blowing it all over the walls with a belt-driven fan right on this side here. And as you can see, it sticks to my hands really well. Also sticks to the walls everywhere. And as you walk through, you'll actually see it on the walls as well. And as I clap, see how dusty it gets. In the event of an explosion, which of course takes 3 main things: methane gas, a spark, and coal dust to start a mine disaster down here. But as that disaster starts to happen, as it makes its way through the mine shafts, it's also going to be blowing all of this dust off of the walls. And as it enters into the air, this dust does 2 things to the explosion. 1, it prevents the coal dust from igniting, giving a lot less fuel for the explosion to use up, so it makes it a lot weaker. Then also it smothers the flames, giving a lot less oxygen to breathe as well. So now, thanks to the rock duster, instead of this giant mine shaft disaster killing a whole lot of people, you have a nice isolated methane explosion, which kills a whole lot less people.
How is this rock duster powered?
Well, we're actually only pulling it in with a horse as it comes through. A belt-driven fan linked to the wheels.
Oh, there's a chain off the axle and it actually powered the blower part. Okay.
Powered the blower, pulling everything up. 1914 was down in Hillcrest, just down the hill from us, was Canada's worst mine disaster in history, killing 189 people. Now, of course, just 4 years before that, though, there was a mine disaster that happened here as well. Our worst disaster. Now, it only killed 31 people altogether. 30 of them were workers inside the mine here.
A big fire then, that disaster?
Yeah.
How long did the fire burn for?
It was only going on for about 30 minutes or so. All in all, not too long. But, of course, as it came through, by the time the mine rescue workers actually came here, it was 5 hours after that.
Yeah.
So, by that point, the only thing left underground was gases, too toxic for anyone to go over.
So what is this?
So the yellow one here is actually just a more modern version of a rock duster. This was only taken in about the 60s, so just after our mine closed. So we weren't actually using this underground here. But essentially, instead of going into the mine,
there's some drills here.
Just put the rock duster.
Stoper. Some other, with stopers and drills and stuff. And yeah, so there's the ventilation shaft here, a couple saws. So that's what they're mining here. This is cool. Lots of water coming out of here, eh? Yeah. Okay. Alright, well, the timbering looks pretty old. It wasn't even peeled. Alright, so yeah, look at that, eh? It wasn't sawed timbering, it was just round timbering notched in there.
So of course, all around us here is what we call a
Get the collar.
ceiling. Of course, we want to see all three of the colors, green, yellow, and red, which we can. And so we know it's quite safe. Yeah.
So what's that called again, Tris?
A telltale.
A telltale.
Telltale. Yeah. Now, of course, if the rock was moved, pull it up, green disappears, all you're left is with yellow and red. You know it's not safe, you should leave. If you can only see red, it's really not safe and you should leave immediately.
So what actually causes it to go up?
Well, the earth itself is naturally always moving. The ground itself is always falling further and further into the ground here. And in the Crozes Pass, it's not uncommon for mountains to move all together in this area. Turtle Mountain itself is still moving 3 millimeters every single year.
So these timber sets all look fairly new, eh?
Yeah, we've replaced all of the timbers down here, all except for one. And I can show you that just around the corner.
It's kind of unusual to see them around. Normally they're always square off.
Yeah. Actually, all of our timbers would have been logs down here. Yeah.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, not sawn, just chopped down and brought into the mine here. One, and it's this big knotty guy right beside me here.
Oh yeah.
This timber right here is original to the mine itself.
There we go. We're looking up this
Now the reason
raise here.
is because it's
So you're right up against the country rock here.
so it's just as hard and just as heavy as any of the rocks around it. If you were to knock on it,
There's a seam of coal there.
the other ones, you feel here and there.
So,
You knock on this guy.
so how come they never mined that seam of coal right there?
Well, that's because it used to be on the ceiling.
Oh, it used to be on the back and it fell off.
Yeah, exactly. So this is of course the location of our first coal seam, and when the miners first got here, it went straight up into this tunnel here. Now all the coal you're seeing up there used to be up on the ceiling, and they were making their tunnel further and further east. And eventually they would start coming back. Now unfortunately though, we only made it about 300 meters or about 1,000 feet to our east here before we had to stop. Because unfortunately for us, we accidentally left our property and entered into the next mine over. Yeah, not really the greatest situation to be in, of course. But the Maple Leaf Company over to our east did not like us stealing their coal, so they kicked us out and we came all the way back to here.
Yeah, look at the sets and stuff in here to hold the back up. There's a ramp.
As we went to the west, we hit eventually a rock fault. So all the rock around the coal seam came down, cut off the coal seam, and we ran out of coal going back.
So what kind of rock is above the coal here?
All of it's going to be limestone all around us.
Mostly all
Now,
limestone, huh?
In the limestone, though, of course, as you can see, there's a few other things. Anything yellow is mostly sulfur. You can smell a lot of it. Even on the walls there, all those yellow streaks, it's all sulfur seeping out of the rocks there.
Sulfides, is there any gold in any of the sulfides at all?
No, there isn't. Nope. Just here.
Look at the size of the timber sets in here.
So nice giant games of Jenga. Yeah, so of course, as we came through the rock tunnels, of course, we were trying to find another coal seam. And right here is where we entered into the second coal seam, right here. Yeah. So of course, this is also a great spot to see that transition from rock into coal as well. So up on the ceiling, you can see that it's still gray limestone. As they go down, eventually go to the coal. Yeah.
It looks like there's a lot of impurities in the coal. Is there or not? It just looks that way.
There's actually a little bit in this coal here, yeah.
Yeah.
This second coal seam has a little bit more impurities than the first coal seam over there.
So how do they? Is there a way to sort that? Is there a way to sort that out, or is it just number 1, 2 grade, or how does that work?
It can be washed right off.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of the time, this has a lot more ash content in it. Just means it's going to burn a little bit dirtier.
Yeah.
But then there's also quite a bit of sulfur inside our coal as well.
So does it go through a wash plant or something? Is processed?
Yeah, right inside the tipple, we're going to be washing it as well.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
Of course, all our coal goes out of the tipple, gets sorted, cleaned, and weighed before it gets sold.
Right.
Yeah. And of course the giant game to Jenga is, well, what's called cogging or cribbing. Yeah.
I know what it's doing.
But there actually would have been 3 tunnels going on.
Oh.
Going up into the coal seam, but
The lagging's pretty solid in here, eh? Yeah, look at there's an old valve here from compressed air line, I guess. Yeah.
we're always trying to do some upkeep down inside.
So Tristan, this is the compressed air line here, is it?
That is our compressed air line going right into the mine here. Yeah. Originally we put that in 1907, and then, well, of course it's not.
So what did they use compressed air for in the coal mine?
We pretty much use compressed air for everything down here.
To run your jack legs and your drills and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So we were using compressed air from anything from blowing out coal to using our pneumonic tools for chipping the coal off of our coal faces, or even using it for pulling out our coal cars with dinky cars.
So did they have ore chute gates and stuff like that run on compressed air also?
Yep, exactly. So of course, right here inside the mine, we still need to have some sort of communications. So this is of course our mine safety phones. Pretty obvious to see which one is ours. It's the nice shiny one, right? But of course the big rusty one is the mine safety phone that the miners used to use. Now these guys, of course, need to withstand most everything inside the mine here. Anything from being hit by rocks, hit by coal, and the occasional explosion inside here as well. So these were completely made out of cast iron, and a big door would go over top of it as well. Now of course, well, every mine phone was set up about every 100 meters apart, all the way through the main haulage route here, and they're all interconnected with each other with a wire as well, like this. Which means if you talk to one, you talk to all of them. So there's no secrets down here. If you're going to talk to your boss, make sure you're saying something nice.
Did they ever have any canaries in this mine?
Yep. So in the early days of our mine, we actually had canary cages coming in, monitoring the gases inside. Of course, the canary's brain is 200 times smaller than ours, so they're a lot more susceptible to quick changes of our methane in some pockets. So of course, if your canary passed out, then you know too much methane in this area, and either leave, put some ventilation into this area, or block it off, whatever you could do at that time. Luckily for us, well, we actually had a special cage for our canaries, an oxygen tank connected with it as well. So if your canary passed out, you can just close the door, turn on your oxygen, and revive your canary, hopefully.
You have to revise your tour a little. See, in a mine, the ceiling is called the back,
Oh,
and those sides are called the ribs.
oh okay.
Didn't know that, I guess, eh?
So this tunnel is actually a special one. This chute going up through here is actually what's called the manway. And the manway would be the primary entrance and exit for all of the workers inside the mine. So of course, this tunnel used to go all the way up to the surface where there would have been a hole in the ground a short distance from town itself. Now miners, of course, would just walk there and enter into the mine that way. Now the main reason why we made this is because this is a lot safer than the portal itself. Because at the portal where we came from, or the entrance of the mine, while there's a lot of coal cars coming in and out through there, then of course you have your trains and other equipment right inside the pit, or the outside workings of our mine, and on a shift change, there could be over 300 people trying to get in and out of the mine at one time. So if we're all coming through the portal, it's only a matter of time before something happens. Inside the mine here, we had 3 sets of rails, hand side, center, and on the left side as well, right over top of the stream there. The center tracks primarily for transportation inside the mine itself. For coal, or sometimes for tools, or also for the miners eventually when we made command trips for them.
One track was for the coal cars to go in, one other track was the coal cars to come out.
Yep, one in, one out, and transportation in between.
Then they had turntables in there to turn the cars around inside then?
Yep, exactly.
Oh, there's an old coal car. So eventually they replaced these wooden cars with metal cars in later years?
No, we actually used these wooden ones all throughout our years.
Wow.
Yeah, we just kept making them.
Why didn't they go to metal cars? Because, like metal's a lot more durable than wood. Why did they have wood cars?
Cost,
money.
primarily, yeah.
Money.
Yeah, it cost a lot more money, and at that
They
point,
it's like anything else. You have your initial money,
Yeah.
and then you have maintenance money.
yeah,
Right?
Yeah.
If they're still working, why change them?
that's exactly.
And all the hard rock mines, they changed them all. But probably it's because the rock is harder and it did more damage to the wood, where
Exactly.
and maybe it wouldn't damage the car so much with
Yeah.
the wood, because coal's so soft.
Coal is quite a bit softer.
Oh, there's an
so-
ore chute. There's a pretty cool ore chute gate.
Yeah, so of course, as you can see, we have our coal chute and then the coal car right below it. Both of these are original to our mine. The coal chute we found right here, of course, as we were coming in to restore the mine. And then the coal car we actually found a little bit further inside the mine, and we pulled it out, put it right here so you can actually see what we were working with. So of course, as I mentioned before, we have 9 different levels altogether. We're sitting down the 3rd level right here, with 6 levels below us. Of course, we have 2 levels above us right now. Now, of course, getting coal from a higher level down to our main haulage route, well, we're not going to be using hoists, we're going to be using coal chutes. Use gravity to our advantage. So of course, this coal chute's what's known as a double chute. It's just double the size of an ordinary chute. Miners aren't always the most creative. But as coal's coming down, the big metal piece up there is called the checkboard. That's actually open, letting coal past it. But as the coal comes past this big wooden piece on top of the coal car here is called the apron. That's actually closed, trapping coal behind it. And as coal starts to pile up behind that, eventually we get enough in between the checkboard and the apron. Now once the coal piled up in between, we close the checkboard, open up the apron, and all the coal in between would fall into our coal car. Now being a double chute like this, typically that's the same amount of coal to fill up one entire coal car as well. But I'll be honest, this process was used later on in the days of our mine when all of the miners were being paid hourly. So it didn't matter whose coal this was, as long as it got out of the mine, everyone was going to get paid. But of course in the early days, especially for the first 30 years of our mine, miners were only contract miners. We paid them by the amount of coal that they took out themselves. Which of course means we needed to know exactly whose coal is whose. So this is where we put little tags on the side of our coal cars here called checks. Now we had checks all over the mine down here. But this check specifically has the number 131 on it, which means that this coal is coming from room or workspace 131. It's also extremely heavy. One coal car by itself with no coal inside of it can weigh up to about 1 ton by itself. It's holding about 2 to 2.5 tons of coal. So
But the rest of the mine doesn't have all this railway track holding the backup, does it? No.
Pretty much right up to it.
Yeah, this is just something they did for the tours here. Okay, yeah.
Now, of course, that you're going to be chipping your coal off of that, and once you chip your coal off the coal face, you send it down your coal chute, down to the coal car, you fill that up, you slap your check on the side if you're a contract miner, and you ship it out to the tipple, and then you get paid for your day from it. Now, hold it.
Sure. So this is a 32. Oh, it almost feels like aluminum.
I know.
Yeah. So this is a 32-degree slope here.
Yeah, so our coal seam is going up into the mountain on about a 32-degree angle. So of course you can see it in the room here, you can also see it on the ceiling, like that.
Which is kind of a pain because it's not steep enough for all the coal to actually go into the coal cars. They're actually having to shovel it down the chute.
Yeah, so come the year 1927, 20 years after we put the compressed air line in, we finally got this guy. Our air pick. So this is essentially like a miner's jackhammer. So that compressed air line, well, the hose would go right up through the ceiling here, they would weave it through, and eventually it would come down and connect right into your air pick in the bottom. And eventually, well, all that would be pushing your pick back and forth. If you hold it up to your coal face, you start chipping your coal a lot faster. So of course, it's a nice thing because it's a lot faster than your pickaxe. But there are some downsides. One is that this is a lot heavier than your pickaxe. I'll pass it around again. Feel it yourself?
And it also makes a lot of dust, eh?
Aha, yeah, that's their other reasons, because it also produces a lot more coal dust in this air as well. And of course, more coal dust means the higher potential for a bigger explosion. So, more coal dust, faster. Now, of course, as you felt it, it's quite a bit heavier than your pickaxe. But I'll be honest, this air pick is only a finishing air pick, and it's half the size of what the miners have. This one's only about 15 pounds or so. Those were double the size of this, and typically about 30 pounds as well. Photographers and geologists' favorite spot of the
About calcium carbonate there.
So anything gray is just limestone. All the white streaks is all calcite. Essentially the stuff that makes the light mines. Red and orange is iron oxide, or essentially this. Well, but yeah, so we're 1,000 feet into the mine here, or about 300 meters. We're still less than 1% into the mine altogether.